Um, Picture this, okay? You
Mhm.
wake up. It's Monday morning, 2026.
Oh, the absolute worst time of the week.
Right. And before your feet even, like, hit the floor, your spatial computing headset flashes to life on the nightstand.
Just instantly projecting stress.
Exactly. Projecting this translucent dashboard of impending doom right onto your bedroom wall. You've got three urgent notifications about a generative algorithm update that might just render your entire department obsolete by, like,
Yeah,
Thursday.
Thursday if you're lucky.
Seriously. And your inbox is just this relentless waterfall of machine-generated, hyper-urgent requests. You are mentally running the number on the housing market, inflation, and that completely impossible conversation you've been actively avoiding for 3 weeks.
Which we all have.
We all have it. And your heart rate monitor gives you that little haptic buzz on your wrist because your pulse is already at like 90 beats per minute.
Oh, wow.
Your
Yeah.
chest feels like someone strapped a dense concrete block to it. And the absolute worst part of this entire
We're
scenario,
still in bed.
you haven't even pulled the blankets back yet.
Yeah. It's a profoundly visceral state of being. And honestly, it has essentially become the defining physical baseline of our modern era.
It really has.
We are existing in an ecosystem that feels precision engineered by thousands of invisible forces
Yeah.
to continuously harvest your attention,
Right.
to steal your peace and aggressively drain your cognitive battery before you even, like, brew your coffee.
So if you are listening to this and feeling that exact specific weight of 2026 crushing your chest, you really need to hear the debate we are getting into today.
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Yes.
We are tearing into a massive, comprehensive audio guide titled How to Stay Calm and Positive in Life. And I'm just going to put my cards on the table immediately here.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
I entered this material with a profound, like, overwhelming level of skepticism.
You have been pushing back on this premise since the very first day we started prepping the material.
Because look at that title, Staying Calm and Positive. I mean, in a hyper-accelerated, algorithm-driven, deeply chaotic global economy,
Right.
it just sounds like the absolute apex of toxic positivity to me. It sounds like one of those outdated, superficial self-help platitudes from a decade ago that just completely shatters the second it makes contact with actual modern reality.
Sure, I get why you'd think that.
Like, tell someone whose career is being actively disrupted by synthetic media right now to just smile through the pain, and they will rightfully laugh you out of the room.
Oh, 100%.
So if this material is just some manifesto on burying a head in the sand, I have zero interest in it.
Well, that is the ultimate friction point, isn't
Yeah.
it? But see, you are falling into the exact cognitive trap this material is designed to dismantle.
Really?
Yes, this is emphatically not a feel-good manual. It is
Yeah.
not about painting a superficial layer of optimism over, like, a structural collapse.
Sure.
What we are analyzing today is a tactical, battle-tested framework.
Tactical. Okay.
It is literal mental armor. We are talking about systematic energy reclamation.
Reclaiming energy.
Exactly. To navigate the sheer velocity and chaos of our current world. These strategies aren't just, optional soft skills. They are the foundational operating system required to survive without completely burning out your nervous system.
Well, we're going to put that armor to the test then, because if you claim this is a survival toolkit, I am going to push back on the most counterintuitive, frankly bizarre advice in this guide.
Bring it on.
Because there are assertions in here that run entirely counter to the accepted dogma of the modern hustle. So let's unpack this.
I welcome the challenge. By the time we finish breaking this down, the goal is to demonstrate that the default human operating system we all use to process stress is functionally backwards.
Okay, let's start at the absolute bedrock of modern anxiety, which the material frames as the paradox of control.
Yes. Chapter 1.
Right. The fundamental argument here is that the harder you attempt to micromanage and control every external variable, so the macroeconomic trends, the unpredictable behavior of your boss, the algorithmic shifts on your platforms, the more acutely out of control and terrified you actually feel.
It is a devastating paradox. And there is a brilliant analogy presented in the text about a film set.
Right, the movie director thing.
Yeah. Most of us burn our entire lifespans trying to act as the director, the producer, and the scriptwriter of this sprawling, chaotic movie.
When in reality,
When biologically and functionally, we only have the capacity to play the main character. I mean, we hemorrhage executive function trying to forcibly script the unscriptable.
the text uses a traffic jam to illustrate this, which I think we need to elevate for a 2026 context.
Absolutely.
The classic example. You are gridlocked in traffic. Your blood pressure is spiking, you are white-knuckling the steering wheel, aggressively honking, desperately calculating alternate routes that just don't exist.
Sweating through your shirt.
Exactly. But did any of that intense physiological effort move a single car in front of you? No. You simply manufactured your own misery.
Right.
The alternative presented is accepting the physical reality of the gridlock and reallocating that energy into something you actually govern, like, listening to a deep dive.
Yes, it is the identical physical environment, but a completely divergent lived experience. And this leads directly into the circle of influence exercise.
Okay, walk me through that.
So you picture two concentric rings, right? The inner circle houses everything you exert direct, unilateral control over.
Like what?
Your immediate thoughts, your physical actions, your behavioral reactions, your ethical decisions. That's it.
And the outer circle?
The outer circle contains the massive swirling vortex of literally everything else. The global economy, the opinions of your peers, the trajectory of artificial intelligence, the weather, the decisions of corporate executives.
All the scary stuff.
Exactly. And the brutal psychological reality is that the average person allocates a staggering 90% of their daily cognitive bandwidth agonizing over that outer circle.
Okay, wait. I need to stop you there. We are all familiar with the standard circle of influence model. It's been around for decades.
Sure.
But applying that to a highly interconnected, hyper-competitive 2026 landscape fundamentally breaks those traditional boundaries.
How so?
Well, here's my challenge to this. If you are an independent contractor right now and a black box AI algorithm completely dictates the visibility of your portfolio and therefore your ability to pay rent, the outer circle is your life.
I see where you're going.
Right. If you aren't aggressively trying to predict, manipulate, and control those external tech disruptions, you get left behind. You get rendered obsolete. Isn't telling people to retreat to their inner circle just a really sophisticated excuse for passivity?
No, exactly the opposite. I strongly disagree with the premise that it breeds passivity.
Really? It sounds like giving up.
It's not. It is about transitioning from being randomly reactive to being strategically calm. Look, you have a finite amount of metabolic energy, literal glucose in your brain, available for executive function each day.
Okay, sure.
Pouring that finite resource into modeling the unpredictable behavior of a black box algorithm is a massive, catastrophic waste of cognitive bandwidth. Let's look at the narrative provided in the source about the corporate restructuring.
The individual trapped under that deeply unpredictable boss.
Yes. The entire department was collapsing, and the narrator spent months playing 4D chess in their head, trying to predict the unpredictable.
Right, losing sleep over catastrophic scenarios.
Exactly, trying to mentally control the executive board's decisions. They were exhausted, terrified, and their actual work quality was plummeting.
Which, let's be honest, is the exact profile of half the tech and media workforce right now.
Precisely. But then they ran the circle of influence protocol. They realized their obsession with the outer circle was yielding zero actionable intelligence and was literally costing them their health.
So what did they do?
They executed a radical reallocation of bandwidth. They pulled 100% of their focus into the inner circle.
Meaning they just did their jobs.
Better than that. They doubled down on the quality of their daily deliverables. They maintained a collaborative attitude when everyone else was panicking. They quietly upskilled.
And the material notes that within 3 months, they were promoted out of the chaos?
They were.
But hold on, the promotion isn't the real victory condition there, is it? Because the promotion was still technically an outer circle event governed by someone else. They didn't control that.
That is the crucial distinction. You hit the nail on the head. They didn't get promoted because they successfully manipulated the outcome. They got promoted because they optimized their own output.
I see.
And the narrator explicitly states that the true triumph wasn't the new title. It was the profound, unshakable psychological peace they experienced during those 3 months of corporate chaos. They literally detached their nervous system from the company's volatility.
Okay, so if we translate this to you, the listener, who is terrified of an AI tool automating your livelihood,
Right.
the protocol implies you must forcefully stop doom scrolling the developer roadmaps of these tech companies because you cannot influence them.
You can't.
And instead, you ruthlessly obsess over your own adaptability. You focus on your unique human soft skills, your daily learning habits, your network.
Exactly. By maximizing the density of your inner circle, your gravity naturally expands your influence outward. You stop deploying your limited cognitive troops to fight unwinnable battles on foreign soil.
Wow. Okay, so you reclaim all that wasted processing power.
Yes. Strategic calm is not surrender. It is the ultimate consolidation of force.
You know, I am willing to concede the utility of strategic calm when dealing with the abstract anxiety of the future.
Good.
But what happens when that outer circle stops being an abstract threat and throws something objectively, undeniably catastrophic at you in the present tense? Because this brings us to the concept of revolutionary gratitude. And frankly, this is the exact moment my skepticism almost made me abandon the material entirely.
The concept of finding the gold in the shadows, Chapter 2.
If there is a phrase that radiates toxic positivity, it's that. The text argues we shouldn't just stoically accept devastating events. We need to actively mine them for value. We are instructed to be grateful for the disasters.
Okay, you are conflating the definition of gratitude with delusional endorsement.
Am I?
Yes. The framework explicitly clarifies that this is never about pretending a traumatic event is secretly a joyous occasion or invalidating genuine grief. It introduces a cognitive mechanism called benefit-finding vision.
Well, let's test that vision against their own case studies because they do not pull their punches in this book.
No, they don't.
They present the story of Sarah. Sarah is laid off from a job she held for 12 years right in the middle of a brutal economic recession. She is financially terrified, her identity is shattered, and she is deeply angry. And the proposed intervention is that she should sit down and ask, what can I be grateful for in this exact situation?
Yes.
How do you look at a sudden 2026 tech layoff, stare down the barrel of impending mortgage defaults, and conjure up gratitude? It honestly feels like gaslighting yourself.
Look, if you remain entirely consumed by the very valid anger and you cement your identity as the helpless victim of a cruel macroeconomic shift, your nervous system freezes.
You panic.
You enter a state of learned helplessness. So let's examine the mechanics of what actually happened to Sarah. By forcing her brain to answer that incredibly difficult question, what is the hidden utility here?
What?
She interrupted the panic spiral.
Yeah, okay.
She forced her prefrontal cortex to search for data instead of just reacting to the threat.
And the data she uncovered was that she actually despised the job.
Exactly. She realized her 12-year tenure was fundamentally draining her vitality. She was only remaining there because the inertia of a biweekly paycheck felt safer than the unknown.
So the layoff was a catalyst.
The layoff, as deeply traumatic as the sudden impact was, acted as a forced ejection from a dying trajectory. It provided a brutal but necessary disruption that allowed her to evaluate her actual capabilities.
Which eventually led her to launch a highly successful independent consulting firm.
Right.
Right.
And 2 years post-impact, she possesses more autonomy and higher revenue. She explicitly labels the firing as the catalyst for her actualization.
But see, the friction point there is the timeline.
What do you mean?
It is very easy to declare getting fired was the best thing to happen to me, from the safety of a successful consulting business 2 years later.
Well, sure.
Hindsight provides the luxury of that narrative. In the immediate aftermath, it is just raw trauma.
But the active practice of revolutionary gratitude is the very mechanism that bridges that agonizing gap between the initial trauma and that future hindsight.
Oh, I see.
It does not wait for time to naturally heal the wound. It immediately begins extracting the raw materials required to build the bridge. It transforms your identity from a passive recipient of damage into an active student of reality.
Let's look at the other extreme example they give. Mark.
The divorce story.
Yeah. Mark undergoes a spectacularly bitter, protracted divorce. His life is totally fractured. And the protocol challenges him to identify 3 distinct elements of the divorce to be grateful for.
A huge ask.
And he initially reacted exactly as I did. He thought the premise was borderline offensive.
A completely rational initial response to immense emotional pain.
Yet over a period of weeks, Mark forces the benefit-finding vision. He begins to document that the isolation of the divorce is forcing him to develop basic independence.
Right, he learns to cook.
He understands his own finances now. And critically, he begins repairing neglected friendships because he no longer has a default partner to rely on for social interaction.
He is forced into uncomfortable self-reflection about his own communication deficits.
And his exact phrasing in the text is vital here. He says, I am not glad my marriage collapsed, but I am profoundly grateful for the resilience and self-awareness I am developing as a direct result of it.
Do you see the crucial distinction there?
I think so.
Benefit-finding vision does not retroactively change the objective reality of the tragedy. It completely re-engineers how your neurology processes the tragedy.
Okay, but this forces me to ask the hardest question about this framework.
Let's hear it.
Where is the demarcation line between revolutionary gratitude and enduring psychological abuse?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because if I am in a toxic work environment with an abusive manager and I convince myself to be grateful because their abuse is building my resilience, isn't that just a fast track to Stockholm Syndrome?
That is an incredibly sharp distinction to draw. But the framework addresses this by differentiating between passive endurance and active extraction.
Explain that.
Gratitude in a toxic environment isn't saying, I'm glad my boss is verbally abusive. It is saying, I am grateful this extreme toxicity has finally provided the undeniable clarity I needed to update my resume and aggressively seek an exit strategy.
Wow.
Benefit finding vision extracts the data necessary to leave the burning building. Toxic positivity convinces you the fire's keeping you warm, so you just sit there and burn to death.
So it's about data extraction. That makes the 3 evening questions protocol make a lot more sense now.
Yes, instead of the standard fluffy list 3 good things that happened today.
Right. The questions are highly tactical. Question 1. What specific difficulty did I encounter, and what operational wisdom did it reveal?
Perfect.
Question 2. What objective failed to materialize, and how did that failure potentially protect or redirect my resources?
Framing failure as protection.
And question 3. Who deeply frustrated me, and how did interacting with them highlight a weakness in my own patience or communication?
It grounds the entire practice in harsh reality. You aren't expressing gratitude for the onset of a blinding migraine,
Right, that would be crazy.
You are grateful the migraine served as an unavoidable biological alarm bell, that you are chronically dehydrated and overcaffeinated.
Yeah. Or you aren't joyous that your teenager is screaming at you. You extract the profound realization that they feel psychologically safe enough in your presence to vent their raw, unfiltered nervous system dysregulation rather than masking it out of fear.
That is the exact mechanism. This cognitive reframing is the ultimate shield against the specific flavor of burnout we are seeing right now in 2026.
Because everything feels like an attack.
Exactly. If you interpret every algorithmic shadow ban, every friction point of asynchronous remote work, and every macroeconomic fluctuation as a targeted attack on your personal agency, your allostatic load will just crush you.
Benefit finding vision allows you to process that massive influx of negative data without internalizing the damage.
Yes.
All right, I will concede the point. In the macro sense, extracting data from failure to build long-term resilience is structurally sound.
Glad you're coming around.
But let's tighten the aperture here. Reframing a divorce or a layoff takes weeks or months of deliberate cognitive effort. What is the protocol for the exact microsecond a crisis detonates?
Immediate acute stress, Chapter 3.
Yeah. You are leading a massive global spatial computing conference call. Your data feed glitches. You project wildly inaccurate financial metrics to a board of directors, and you realize the mistake in real time.
Pure terror.
Your sympathetic nervous system instantly floods your body. My panic does not magically dissipate because I try to mentally search for the hidden benefit while the CEO is glaring at my avatar.
And the physiological research fully supports you on that. You cannot outthink an acute adrenal dump.
So what do you do?
Well, the material delves into the biological mechanics of emotional resetting, and it highlights a piece of neurochemical reality that fundamentally shifted my understanding of stress.
What is it?
The pure physiological lifespan of an emotion, the actual chemical cascade in your bloodstream, only lasts for exactly 90 seconds.
Okay, I need to stop you right there.
I knew you would.
90 seconds? That sounds mathematically impossible. I have carried the visceral, chest-tightening anger of a disrespectful email for 72 consecutive hours.
You carry the anger, yes,
Yeah.
but you did not carry the original chemical burst.
What do you mean?
Here is the mechanism. Your amygdala perceives the social threat of the data error on the call. It signals the hypothalamus, which triggers the adrenal glands. Cortisol and adrenaline instantly flood your system.
Right, flight or fight.
Your heart rate spikes, your pupils dilate. But the biological half-life of that specific chemical dump is incredibly short. Within 90 seconds, your liver has metabolized and cleared those stress hormones from your bloodstream.
Wait, so if the physical chemicals are neutralized in under 2 minutes, why am I still sweating and hyperventilating an hour after the presentation ends?
Because your cognitive layer, what the material identifies in Chapter 4 as the inner critic, takes over.
Oh.
The initial 90-second wave was just a biological reflex. Everything you feel at minute 2, minute 10, or hour 3 is a manufactured loop.
Manufactured.
You are actively pouring cognitive gasoline on the dying embers of a physical fire by looping the narrative. I am totally incompetent. I'm going to be fired. My reputation is permanently destroyed.
You are manually re-triggering the amygdala over and over again.
Exactly. You are hacking your own threat detection system to stay engaged. The text illustrates this with the anecdote of the presenter, who makes a catastrophic data error mid-speech.
Oh, right, yeah. The panic instantly rises.
The biological 90-second wave hits them hard, and the instinctual default is to let the inner critic seize the microphone and spiral into the disaster narrative, right?
Which would cause them to stutter, sweat, and completely bomb the rest of the presentation.
But instead, they deploy the 90-second protocol. They simply internally observed the wave hitting without adding a narrative to it.
So what did they say to themselves?
They thought, I am noticing a massive spike in my heart rate. I am experiencing the sensation of extreme anxiety. This makes biological sense given the error.
They just narrated it.
They did not feed the loop. They breathed through the 90 seconds, calmly corrected the metric for the board, and finished the presentation with absolute clarity. And the board members later praised their remarkable grace under fire.
The theory is sound, I get it. But how do you practically intercept the gasoline?
The Istop-P method.
Right. Because when your brain is screaming that you are in mortal danger, how do you manually override the system to actually let those 90 seconds pass?
The material provides a highly specific mechanical override.
Yeah.
It's an acronym. First, the S. Stop.
Stop.
You must create a physical pattern interrupt. You silently or even subvocally say the word stop to forcefully arrest the momentum of the inner critic's narrative.
You are hitting the emergency brake on the rumination train.
Precisely. Second, the T. Take a breath.
Yeah.
But this isn't just generic deep breathing. It is a targeted hack of the vagus nerve to manually engage the parasympathetic nervous system.
How does that work?
The ratio is critical. You inhale through the nose for 4 seconds, you hold the inflator for 4 seconds, and you execute a slow, controlled exhale through the mouth for 6 seconds.
The extended exhale is the mechanical trigger, right?
Yes.
It changes the pressure in your chest, which signals the vagus nerve to tell the heart to slow down. It literally sends a false signal to the brain saying, the environment must be safe because we have the luxury of exhaling slowly.
Exactly. You are using your lungs to biologically lie to your brain's panic center.
I love that. Okay, what's next?
Third is O. Observe. You analyze the physical sensations of the emotion with cold, detached curiosity, completely stripping away the judgment.
So no, I'm so stupid.
Right. You shift the language from I am furious to I am currently observing the physiological symptoms of anger in my chest.
You are treating your emotional state like passing weather. You are not the hurricane. You are the reinforced concrete bunker observing the hurricane on a radar screen.
That is a perfect visualization. And finally, P, proceed with intention. Once that 90-second chemical wave is metabolized, you consult your executive function. You ask, what is the most highly leveraged way I want to show up in this exact moment?
This connects deeply to what the text identifies as time travel syndrome in Chapter 5.
A huge issue right now.
The argument is that chronic anxiety is exclusively the act of mentally living in a catastrophic future, while depression is the act of endlessly analyzing a painful past.
Neither of which are real.
True psychological regulation only exists in the literal present millisecond. And if we look at our 2026 environment, every piece of hardware we own, the spatial headsets, the algorithmic feeds, the smartwatches, they are literal billion-dollar time travel machines.
You really are.
Their entire business model is predicated on ripping your consciousness out of the present moment and dragging it into future anxieties or past outrage just to harvest your engagement.
They cite the tragic case study of Jennifer here. Jennifer was suffering from debilitating insomnia.
Because of the time travel.
Exactly. Why? Because she was lying in bed using her imagination to project a highly detailed catastrophic future where her slightly unmotivated teenage daughter failed out of college, became unemployable, and ruined her life.
Wow.
She was essentially time-traveling 5 years into a fictional disaster, completely blinding herself to the reality that her current present-day relationship with her daughter was actually deeply affectionate and stable.
So to forcibly yank the consciousness back from these fictional timelines, the material advocates for the 5-4-3-2-1 sensory grounding technique.
Yes. When the time travel panic initiates, you forcefully drop an anchor into your immediate physical reality. You verbally identify 5 distinct objects in your visual field.
Right.
4 distinct physical textures you can currently touch. 3 isolated sounds in your environment. 2 scents, 1 taste.
It occupies the exact same cognitive bandwidth the anxiety is trying to use. You are starving the panic of resources.
They also push the concept of single-tasking meditation. And the example given is washing the dishes.
Oh, this is so good.
But not just scrubbing them while listening to an audiobook. It requires full, unfiltered sensory awareness. Feeling the exact thermal temperature of the water, analyzing the viscosity of the soap, hearing the specific acoustic friction of the sponge.
So specific.
Now, I will be completely honest here. The idea of doing dishes with full sensory awareness sounds like a recipe for mind-numbing boredom.
It sounds boring until you reframe the context of what you're actually doing.
Okay, reframe it for me. When you engage in single-tasking sensory awareness, it is an act of radical, aggressive rebellion against the global attention economy.
Rebellion.
Think about it. The most powerful corporate entities in human history are deploying supercomputers to fractionalize your attention and sell it to advertisers. When you choose to stand at your sink and give 100% of your cognitive processing power to the simple act of washing a ceramic plate, you are forcefully taking your brain back.
Wow.
You are starving their algorithms.
I really love that framing. Washing a dish isn't a chore, it is an act of cognitive defiance. You are reclaiming your real estate.
Exactly.
Which actually serves as the perfect transition into the hidden core of this material. Because once you have secured your internal real estate, you are metabolizing the 90-second cortisol dumps, you are extracting data via gratitude, you are actively rebelling via presence. You now face a completely new vulnerability.
Chapter 8.
If you are perfectly regulated, you instantly become a target for everyone else's dysregulation. You have to defend your perimeter.
This is where we delve into the science of boundaries. And for my money, this is the absolute hidden gem of the entire framework. Most readers just skim this middle section.
Why do they skim it?
Because the concept of boundaries have been so diluted by pop psychology that most people assume it just means sending your calls to voicemail or refusing to attend a social event.
And in a hyper-collaborative 2026 work culture where cross-functional integration is mandatory, if you attempt to build rigid walls and aggressively say no to incoming requests, you don't look empowered.
No, you don't.
You look inflexible, you get labeled as a friction point, you get categorized as not a team player, and eventually you just get managed out of the organization.
But the framework dismantles the idea of boundaries as defensive walls. Instead, it redefines them as the architecture of sustainability. I know you loathe cliché metaphors, so let's use a technical one.
Please.
A boundary is not a concrete dam that stops all water. It is a stateful inspection firewall in a network.
I like that.
It doesn't drop your server off the internet. It meticulously analyzes the packets of emotional and energetic data attempting to enter your system, blocking the malicious payloads while allowing the essential operational data to flow smoothly. You cannot run a server without a firewall, and you cannot run a sustainable human life without boundaries.
Let's run the case study of Linda through this firewall analogy.
The single mom.
Yes. Linda is the classic single mother archetype presented in the text. She is operating at maximum capacity, working a demanding full-time job, managing the declining health of elderly parents, constantly fielding her ex-husband's logistical complaints, silently taking on the overflow projects of her incompetent coworkers, and serving as an unpaid crisis counselor for her friends.
A total system overload.
Her firewall is completely disabled. Every single packet of data is allowed into her system.
Because her underlying behavioral code is driven by the fear that implementing a firewall will make her unlikable. She equates absolute accessibility with being valued.
But the paradox is, by allowing her system to be constantly overloaded, she is approaching total system failure.
Exactly.
When she finally configures the firewall, when she tells her ex-husband she will only process communications regarding the children during specific weekend hours, and when she simply stops volunteering to do her coworkers' jobs, what happens?
The network doesn't collapse.
It stabilizes, she
Yeah.
generates clarity, and actually commands respect.
The material diagnoses Linda's previous state as being an emotional sponge, and it categorizes the necessary firewalls into 4 distinct protocols: time boundaries, emotional boundaries, energy boundaries, and value boundaries.
And in our current era of constant digital connectivity, the emotional boundary is the most critical.
Absolutely. The text highlights the dynamic of the crisis friend.
Oh, this one hit close to home.
Yeah. The narrator had a friend whose life was a perpetual sequence of emergencies. Every phone call was a 5-alarm fire. And the narrator dutifully absorbed all of this frantic, negative energy, operating under the assumption that acting as an emotional sponge was the definition of loyalty.
But upon analysis, the absolute accessibility wasn't actually resolving the friend's crises. It was just serving as a pressure release valve that enabled the friend to completely avoid fixing the root cause.
Exactly. The narrator was acting as an emotional subsidy, preventing the friend from experiencing the consequences of their own chaos.
So what did setting the boundary look like?
Setting an emotional boundary, which sounded like, I value our relationship deeply, but I do not have the psychological capacity to process this level of distress right now, and I strongly recommend you engage a professional therapist, felt incredibly harsh in the moment.
Right.
But it was the exact friction required to force the friend to seek actual clinical help. The boundary didn't destroy the friendship. It saved the friend.
A sponge eventually hits absolute saturation and becomes useless. If you do not ruthlessly filter out the energy vampires, you have zero bandwidth left to allocate to the energy givers.
It's just math.
Okay, we have established the firewall to protect our present energy, but this brings us to a critical vulnerability in the system.
What's that?
What happens when we analyze the malware that is already inside the network? How do we address the actors who bypassed our defenses in the past and inflicted actual damage?
Chapter 7.
The material tackles this through what it calls the forgiveness revolution.
This is the moment the entire paradigm shifts.
I will admit I read the section with my defenses fully raised.
Why?
Because we operate in a 2026 culture that highly prizes receipts, accountability, and the public distribution of consequences. The concept of forgiveness carries massive baggage.
It does.
It sounds deeply rooted in antiquated moral or religious frameworks that essentially demand you lay down your weapons and let bad actors off the hook. It sounds synonymous with weakness.
That is the universally accepted cultural framing. We view forgiveness as a gift we reluctantly bestow upon the transgressor, assuming they have earned it through sufficient groveling.
Exactly.
But the framework entirely dismantles that definition. It strips away the moral and religious context and approaches it purely as a biological necessity.
The defining axiom they use is, and I love this, holding on to chronic resentment is like willingly ingesting poison every single morning and patiently waiting for the other person to die.
The neurological evidence backing this up is just staggering. When you actively ruminate on a past betrayal, you are physically strengthening the neural pathways to your amygdala.
You're practicing being angry.
Yes. You are keeping your sympathetic nervous system in a low-grade, constant state of engagement. You are flooding your own tissues with cortisol, increasing your allostatic load, and generating chronic inflammation. You are literally causing physical damage to your own brain's white matter.
The story of the business partner betrayal perfectly encapsulates the asymmetry of this damage.
It really does.
The narrator experienced a profound betrayal by a trusted business partner. The partner embezzled funds, severely damaged the narrator's professional reputation, and just walked away.
Just brutal.
The narrator spent months carrying this betrayal like a 100-pound backpack of radioactive material. They laid awake at 3 a.m., crafting imaginary arguments, plotting revenge, tracking the partner's new ventures online. Their blood pressure was permanently elevated.
And what was the physical state of the betraying partner during this exact same period?
The partner was sleeping 8 hours a night. They had moved on. They were entirely unaffected.
The narrator's meticulously crafted righteous anger was inflicting absolutely zero damage on the target. It was exclusively destroying the narrator's own cardiovascular health, their sleep architecture, and their capacity to focus on new ventures.
And this is where the breakthrough realization hit me. I literally had to read the passage 3 times.
The aha moment.
The narrator ultimately executes the forgiveness protocol, but they don't do it because the partner offered an apology.
Nope.
They don't do it because the partner deserved absolution. They do it because the narrator simply could not afford the metabolic cost of carrying the radioactive backpack anymore. Wait. If I'm understanding the mechanics of this correctly, the text is arguing that forgiveness contains zero moral high ground. It is not an act of grace.
Not in this operational framework, no.
It is a biohack. It is a completely ruthlessly selfish act executed exclusively for the benefit of your own physiological system.
Yes. Think back to your computer analogy. When you refuse to forgive, you are allowing a malicious actor from your past to permanently install a background process on your brain's operating system.
Wow.
That background process is running 24 hours a day, draining your battery, and stealing your RAM. Forgiveness is not telling the hacker that what they did was acceptable.
It's not letting them off the hook.
No. Forgiveness is you opening the task manager and forcefully terminating the program. You are executing an eviction notice to reclaim your own processing power.
That is a staggering reframe. I forgive you, not because your actions were acceptable, but because my internal real estate is too valuable to let you occupy it rent-free. It is the ultimate reclamation of power.
It changes everything.
But the framework pushes it even further into the most difficult territory possible: self-forgiveness. Because evicting an external squatter is one thing. What happens when the malicious background process was written by your own past actions?
The internal critic is always the most vicious. The text highlights the incredibly heavy case study of Robert.
Right, the college story.
Robert was carrying the immense, crushing guilt of a drunk driving incident from his college years. By sheer luck, no one was physically injured, but the sheer reckless stupidity of the act haunted him for 2 decades.
He utilized that guilt as a form of self-flagellation. He believed that by denying himself happiness, sabotaging his own romantic relationships, and passing up career advancements, he was somehow balancing the cosmic scales.
He thought his suffering was a form of accountability.
But accountability requires restitution. Self-torture is just a localized black hole. It wasn't protecting anyone, it was merely ensuring that the initial mistake generated a lifetime of collateral damage.
When Robert finally engages the self-forgiveness protocol, he doesn't digitally erase the memory. He doesn't minimize the severity of the terrible choice.
No. Erasing the data would mean losing the lesson.
Exactly. Self-forgiveness allowed him to transmute the raw, toxic guilt into high-octane fuel. He took the emotional energy he was spending on hating himself and redirected it into volunteering for drunk driving prevention programs. He allowed the mistake to forge a new, positive trajectory.
The mechanism they use to execute this eviction is called the Gratitude Completion Ceremony in Chapter 13.
A powerful tool.
It is a deliberate, formalized process of acknowledging the specific pain the event caused, systematically extracting whatever tactical wisdom or resilience can be gleaned from it, and then ceremonially releasing the emotional charge. Because the objective reality is that the past only exists as electrical signals in your memory.
That's all it is.
Every millisecond you spend interacting with those signals is a millisecond you are actively deleting from your present life.
The material introduces a micro version of this for daily friction called the forgiveness breath.
Ooh, I like this one.
When the minor indignities of life strike, the driver who aggressively cuts you off, the colleague who takes subtle credit for your presentation deck, you don't let it install a background process.
Right.
You inhale. You mentally articulate, I forgive you, not for you, but because I refuse to carry the metabolic weight of your dysfunction, and you forcefully expel the tension on the exhale. You keep the RAM perfectly clear.
Keep the slate clean, terminate the background processes. I genuinely love the mechanics of that.
It's highly efficient.
So let's review the architecture we have built so far. We have neutralized the paradox of control by pulling our bandwidth into the inner circle.
Okay.
We have transformed gratitude from a toxic platitude into a tactical data extraction tool. We have mapped the 90-second neurochemical life cycle of panic and learned to vagus nerve hack our way out of it. We have deployed stateful inspection firewalls to protect our energy, and we have ruthlessly, selfishly forgiven our past to reclaim our processing power.
A complete system overhaul.
The architecture is flawless, but here's where the rubber meets the road.
Implementing it.
Exactly. How does the listener actually boot up this new operating system tomorrow morning without it immediately crashing under the sheer weight of old habits? We all know the graveyard of overly ambitious morning routines.
This is why the framework concludes with Chapter 12, the mechanics of implementation, the discipline of daily habits.
The 1% rule.
The fundamental mathematical reality is that the trajectory of your life is not determined by massive heroic leaps. It is determined by the compound interest of your microscopic daily behaviors, the 1% compound effect. A 1% daily improvement compounds to a 37-fold increase over a single year.
The math is undeniable, but their execution strategy triggered my skepticism again.
Really? How so?
They advocate for micro-habits. They explicitly warn against attempting a 30-minute meditation block on day 1. They suggest starting with a single minute, or looking at the narrator's specific intervention for a chaotic morning routine.
Right, the water.
Yeah, the only protocol they added was drinking 1 full 8-ounce glass of water and taking 3 deep, controlled breaths before allowing their eyes to look at their inbox.
It seems small.
I have to push back. Drinking a glass of water and taking 3 breaths is biologically insignificant. It is too microscopically small to alter the trajectory of a highly stressed professional life.
You are looking at the action, not the underlying mechanism. It has absolutely nothing to do with hydration.
It doesn't.
No. It is a concept called identity architecture. The reason most people fail to change their lives is that they introduce massive amounts of behavioral friction all at once. They decide to wake up at 5:00 a.m., run 5 miles, journal for 20 pages, and drink a complex adaptogen smoothie.
And then they quit by Wednesday?
Because the basal ganglia in their brain rejects the massive deviation, and they revert to baseline within 72 hours.
They trigger their own system's immune response to change.
Exactly. But when you establish a micro-habit so laughably small that it requires zero willpower like drinking 1 glass of water, you bypass the brain's resistance.
Okay.
And when you execute that tiny action with perfect consistency for weeks, you aren't just hydrating, you are sending a continuous subconscious signal to your neural pathways. You are casting daily votes for a new identity.
Oh, I see.
You are slowly overriding the code from I am a victim who immediately reacts to the chaotic demands of the world to I am an intentional operator who dictates the terms of my own morning before I allow the world in.
It is the psychological beachhead. Once you secure the beachhead with the water, you can land heavier troops later.
Precisely. They expand this into the concept of mindful transitions.
I need this one.
The modern worker seamlessly blurs from a high-stress video call immediately into a complex email thread, and then physically walks into their kitchen to interact with their spouse, carrying the energetic residue of the previous tasks with them.
Bleeding stress everywhere.
The microhabit intervention is inserting a 10-second buffer, pausing in the doorway, taking 3 conscious breaths, and asking the executive function, what is the optimal way I want to show up in this next specific environment? You manually sever the momentum of constant mindless doing.
And as these micro-habits compound, they inevitably lead the framework to its final necessary conclusion. Purpose and meaning. Chapter 15.
The big picture.
Because if you perfectly optimize your inner circle, you extract all the data, you clear your RAM, and you build perfect firewalls, but you possess no overarching why.
Or just spinning your wheels.
Right, you are just a highly optimized, incredibly efficient machine with no destination.
The framework makes a vital distinction here. Purpose is not an exotic artifact you stumble upon in the woods. It is an architecture you actively construct.
The narrator's story illustrates this perfectly.
The narrator had achieved high-level professional success and financial stability, yet was experiencing profound psychological emptiness. The optimization was hollow.
Until they found the foster care program.
It wasn't until they began mentoring youth in the foster care system that their entire worldview clicked into place. But crucially, the text emphasizes that purpose does not require a grand, scalable, world-saving mission.
The case study of Eleanor, the cafeteria worker, is the perfect distillation of this. Eleanor spent 30 years working the line in a public school cafeteria. By 2026 standards, it is a role with 0 prestige, minimal compensation, and 0 upward mobility.
It is entirely unoptimized.
But look at her operational output.
Exactly. She made a deliberate, conscious choice to treat every single student who moved through her line as if they were the most vital, important human being on the planet.
She memorized their names.
She tracked their moods. She offered hyper-specific encouragement when they looked defeated. When she eventually retired, hundreds of former students, many now adults, returned to explicitly state that Eleanor's daily 30-second interactions of pure, unfiltered kindness were the specific anchors that kept them tethered to reality during incredibly dark periods in their home lives.
That is the concept of legacy thinking. Her ultimate legacy was not a disruptive tech product or a massive stock portfolio. Her legacy was thousands of deliberate microscopic interventions that injected light into a chaotic system.
It's incredible.
Look, I am going to completely drop my skeptical framing here.
I was wondering when you'd cave.
This deep dive has fundamentally rewired my understanding of emotional resilience. When I initially read Staying Calm and Positive, I saw it as a surrender to the chaos, but I see the architecture now.
It's solid.
This is not soft. It is not fluffy. It is a rigorous, mandatory defensive posture for surviving the modern era. If you do not actively, ruthlessly construct this mental armor, the algorithmic feeds, the macroeconomic pressures, and the sheer deafening noise of 2026 will strip mine your peace until there is absolutely nothing left.
It is the ultimate asymmetrical warfare. The world has supercomputers, you have the 90-second breath, and the breath works.
It really does.
The operational mandate for anyone listening is critical here. Do not attempt to install the entire operating system this afternoon. Pick one Single microscopic intervention. Choose the glass of water. Choose the vagus nerve exhale. Choose to execute one forgiveness breath for a minor slight. Just establish the beachhead.
As we close out this analysis, I want to leave you with one final provocative concept drawn from the material's exploration of transcendent goals.
The emotional contagion piece.
Yes. It is based on the proven neurology of mirror neurons and emotional contagion. Think about the network of humans you will interact with over the next 24 hours. Your family, your colleagues, the barista making your coffee, the people observing your avatar on a spatial call.
Everyone.
Science dictates that your internal emotional state is highly contagious. It acts as a localized broadcast signal. Ask yourself, based on your current operating system, are you unknowingly infecting your network with the ambient chaos, anxiety, and frantic reactivity of the modern world?
Or are you the anchor?
Right. Are you actively utilizing these tools to become the single grounded node in your community that is transmitting a signal of strategic peace? You do not possess the bandwidth to fix the entire globe today, but whose specific immediate world can you alter today? Simply by the deliberate, armored way you choose to show up.